My name is Dacia Clay. I'm the audio librarian here at Classical 91.7. While I'm a real librarian, I have a deep, dark secret. I know very little about classical music. I grew up listening to rock, and I know something about jazz. But when it comes to classical, the thing is, I want to learn. And as it turns out, I work with people who know a lot about classical music. Every week on this show, one of my coworkers will give me a homework assignment, a piece of classical music they think I should know, and then we'll discuss it. Come learn with me in the classical classroom. Hello everyone, and welcome to the classical classroom. I'm Dacia Clay, and my teacher today will be Alecia Lawyer, who is the founder, artistic director, and principal oboist for ROCO, the River Oaks Chamber Orchestra, whose tagline is, "The most fun you can have with serious music."
Hey, that's right. We're going to have fun today, too.
Totally. So just a little bit about you. My research minions tell me that you attended Juilliard, which I assume was just like an episode of Fame, like every day.
Exactly, completely. Yeah. I danced around.
People dancing. And
it's like that Prance Woman on YouTube now that you can do the Prankster. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's
like it was just like that.
Yeah.
People
all
were
day long
dancing in the halls.
Yep.
And okay. Hear too that you were a former radio host.
Oh yeah, on K-Arts.
Cool.
In here in Houston.
When was that? Like
it was back in the mid-90s.
Okay.
Yeah, I did the Midnight Till Dawn version for a while, and then a Sunday morning show. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you know all about us radio people.
It's a lot of fun.
I also hear that you were a finalist for the Texas Musician of the Year, along with, wait for it, Willie Nelson.
I'm so proud. It was actually really cool. Yeah.
Did you get to meet him?
No, I didn't. No,
okay.
I didn't. So,
but you can say that you were, in
the same category,
same group
yes,
with Willie Nelson.
Absolutely.
Which I think for a Texan
is super cool.
Yeah, it's a proud moment. So, without further ado, what are you going to be teaching me about today?
Well, I think just entering the world of oboe and what that really means. And
cool.
A lot of people don't know what an oboe is. I mean, a lot of adults don't know. It is very similar to a clarinet, is what I say. Okay. But at the tip, it's a double reed. Instead of just a single reed like a saxophone or clarinet has that goes against some plastic, there's two pieces of cane that vibrate together, kind of like when you pick up two pieces of grass and buzz them together.
Yeah. Wow. You play these two blades of grass that are attached to this instrument. This is madness. Why would anyone do this?
Exactly.
What do you love about the oboe?
The challenge. And when you do reach the dulcimer point, when you finally reach the point where it's almost like hitting a great golf stroke. When you which I've never done, but when you're in the zone anytime. Let's do a sports analogy here somehow. Pick your sport and have your analogy for the zone, okay? But when you're in that zone and the reed works great and you're in the moment of the music, there really isn't anything better than knowing you've created the sound that you've made because oboists actually have to make our reeds. And you've created the sound you make, and the choice that you make for that particular piece just aligns with the stars, and it just all comes together. So there's a real challenge to hit almost that sweet spot when you perform.
More so, you think, with the oboe than with other instruments because of that double reed issue?
I think because we have control over what our sound is, and bassoonist as well. I think there's just an extra challenge there that you feel like you've overcome in a rare moment when you've got that great reed going.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you make your own reeds, and
yes.
You sent me some information before we talked, and you were saying that you actually have to order the materials that you need to make the reed from someplace in France because the sand is special or something like that.
It's true.
Really?
It's arrondodonax. It's a certain type of bamboo, and it's funny.
Say that again.
Arrondodonax.
Okay.
Arundo and then donax, Donax. It's a type of bamboo that comes specifically from France. It's grown best where great wine comes from, and I think there's some correlation there. I don't know. Happy to go find out.
Oboist
If you want to
drinkers.
send me on a research trip, I'm happy to find that out. But there's a lot of people in the States that definitely try to grow their own, as you can say. Don't want to talk about that. But no, they do. And it's kind of like finding the perfect place, to grow grapes or to grow any type of plant. The best place is in this part of France around Nice that has the right soil, the right temperate, whatever. But anyway, it comes out and then they have to age it over a number of years. And then you have to find the exact diameter. From there, it's sent to specialized places that sell this kind of equipment to oboists. So you order it by the pound. It's all legal, I promise. So you order it by the pound, and then when you get it to your house, you have a lot of specialized equipment that you chop it and you gouge it and then you fold it and you scrape
into
it
the pipe and you smoke it.
No,
kidding.
No, really no. But you have all these special ways of creating it and then folding it over a little tube and cutting it, and then the scraping begins, which is in and of itself an art form. Wow. So it's its own craft besides just the music practicing and things. It's like you have to be left and right brained, engineer minded and also music minded. And I think that's what's so fascinating about it.
Well, with something like the trumpet, you just go, that's what I played way back in the day. And, you just go to the store
Exactly.
and you buy yourself a nice mouthpiece. And when it, if you accidentally drop it on the floor a few too many times, you go get a new one.
Right.
Otherwise you can keep one indefinitely.
Right.
But you have to actually sit down. You have to go onto the internets. You have to make your order of this special bamboo. And then you take a knife and you take some sort of tool and you actually have to carve out your mouthpiece before you can even sit down and play.
Right, exactly. But you have to chop it. There's lots of different things. And actually one of the pieces looks like a little bomb. It looks like a little homemade bomb, and it's like a gouger. And we have all these specialty knives that we have for scraping and for clipping and razor blades. And so,
my God.
It's really fascinating to be a part of this because the reeds actually turn into little barometers. That's what they are. They're organic material, and when the weather changes, the reeds change.
So the sound of the instrument
exactly
changes.
And you have to have I think the other part of it is, since the reed itself is all that's in your mouth, there's no plastic like in the clarinet to blow against. It's more volatile. It's just more volatile. You are controlling the tone of it exclusively, and that's what's an interesting thing too.
That is really, really intense. I mean, I've seen these reeds, these double reeds, and they look just so delicate.
Yeah.
And I would be afraid if I sat down to try to play an oboe that I would, immediately just break it. Yeah, I mean,
it can definitely happen, especially on your tooth. But I will give you a lesson sometime, and you can play it.
Okay.
It's actually really fun. It's very buzzy and hard to make good sounds at first. I think, like any instrument, it's you want to overcome the physical limitations of the instrument so that you can actually say from your soul to soul what you're trying to say.
Right.
Which is what I say about, you don't practice to make things right. You practice it to get rid of all your limitations physically, to be able to say things spirit to spirit.
I've always thought that the people who can play an instrument the best, or people who can write the best, people who can paint the best, are the people who have the sort of technical capabilities, and so they don't have that, they don't have any sort of barrier between them and their instrument, whatever that may be. Right. So they're able to just directly sort of express whatever it is.
Well, and there's a real fear in that. There's a real exposure and vulnerability to that.
Let's get to some music. I want to hear some of this oboe that you speak of.
Just that oboe you speak of. So I chose all these different excerpts because it's giving you an idea of when you have to go sit and make that perfect reed that really is never perfect, all the challenges you have to play all these different pieces of music. While I won't go into all the details, the ugly, sordid details of reed making and what that gives you in what certain reeds can do, I'll just show you the variety that there is in the solos that you hear and how composers kind of sense an oboe's purpose is in an orchestra. So what you're about to hear, which is really great, it's the Tchaikovsky Fourth Symphony, Movement 2. It opens with an entire oboe solo. And this is going to be Mazel in Cleveland. You're sitting there as principal oboe and you're hearing this. You're sitting there knowing that the second movement depends completely on you. There's 3 notes, ma-dee-da-dee, and that's you. And if it doesn't come out, reed doesn't work, it's over. So you're sitting there at the end of this, at this, you're hearing this, and you're probably not even playing, or you're pretending to play because you're like, my reed. I hope it's working still. Is it wet enough? I don't know. Oh no, look at that conductor. Oh, look at that lady in the audience with that necklace on. Oh wait, I gotta play now. And you're like, wow, I really, really, really hope that my reed works. And then this end of this, and then complete silence. Probably somebody next to you swabs their instrument, which really annoys you. And then you got to come in on this stunning. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
It's just such a graceful entry
exactly.
too, and you've got to. I imagine you're
the
just
panic
going,
you're having before that. Exactly. So, I mean, it happens in anybody. I mean, just when you have sports, and I bring it back to sports, but anything you can remember in high school or college when you had to take that shot for the basket or something. That same angst happens, but at the same time, you have to have this way of channeling that sound, that color. There's a color to that tone. Yeah. You don't want to go bang, 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 bang. That would really be horrific. Or, I mean, there's got to be certain color choices. And I mean color by literal color. When I think of sound in oboe, I think of it in multi-sensory ways. Sometimes notes sound chocolatey to me. Sometimes they sound, and I'll actually, Shostakovich number 5 is a great example of one that actually tastes metallic. Okay?
Okay, I gotta hear this.
And when I play it, I think that way. Like, you know how you bite down on an aluminum foil? Not a good thing when you have okay, it's that sense that I want to bring to this particular piece.
You may have synesthesia.
Yeah, I love that. I don't think I really do, but I use the concepts.
Am I not about that on Radio Lab?
Yeah, David Eagleman totally talked to me about that one. Yeah.
Yes, I read about that in one of his books.
I'm like a pretend one. I'm like a wannabe, but yeah. I'm a wannabe synesthesist, if that's the right word. He'll correct me. But this, in the middle of this this symphony that Shostakovich wrote, supposedly, having this heroic classicism and in this stricture that he had to write, and then this oboe solo in the middle of the third movement comes out. It's got this iciness to it. It's just this complete and utter feeling that there's kind of a lack of hope in the struggle that he went through. Doesn't that give you chills?
It's really
desolate. It's desolate, completely different from the warmth of Tchaik 4.
I wrote in my notes that it was more Peter and the Wolfie. It reminded me a little bit of that
of the duck,
of that sound. Yeah.
Yep. And there's the duck is a great example. We were always told that we're the duck from the beginning.
The duck of the orchestra. I really like how the oboe and these two pieces so far just sort of appears out of the ether or something.
Great way to say it.
Of the music. There's no abrupt entry. It just sort of slips in.
That's right. And again, you think about not the mental capacity of oboes, but the mental thought behind the entrance, even on that part. If you hear these strings kind of coming up and up and up, you still have that sense of panic because you're about to play, but it's more of a, you have to think, like you said, coming out of the ether is great, or the nether world from Minecraft, but from the nether there. But this whole idea that the color that comes out of it is truly the craft you have in your brain. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, I want this to be this, I always think icy, ethereal thing, then it comes out really differently. But you'd make these choices based on what you know of the composition, and so it was really well crafted in that way. And this next thing, the Scheherazade, is completely different because the entrance is very abrupt, and it's the story of Scheherazade comes from the Arabian Nights, and it's the idea that she doesn't want to die, so she keeps coming up with creative stories.
That's right.
The Sultan marries all these people and kills them after one night of love, and and then she just keeps telling stories over and over again and keeps his interest. And so what's fun about this solo for the oboe and the bassoon and all the things that happen is you have to think that way. You have to think, I can't just play this straight. How boring is that? It has to be something where I don't die at the end. Yeah. So there's a little pressure on this excerpt.
That's intense. This is really what's going through your mind. I have to play so well, so awesomely that the Sultan does not kill me at the end.
Exactly. See how fun it is to play the oboe. It's very flirtatious.
It's funny.
Yeah.
You sent me a YouTube clip of the oboist was this little guy in a tux with bow tie on. He looked very official, very professional. And as soon as he starts playing, he's just like bopping all over the place. Exactly. He's like bouncing everywhere. It's awesome.
And you heard a lot of the bopping around, like you said, even in the music itself, and then a lot of what's called articulation. Articulation is when your tongue comes in contact with the reed, or in trumpet, it's more just the lips, but it makes a ta-ta-ta-ta-ta sound with your tongue.
Staccato.
Exactly.
Sort of,
Staccato is incredibly short, ta-ta-ta-ta, and legato is ta-ta-ta-ta, very long. So there's a wide variety, and you can start sensing that music is like painting. You have the layer of the wind in a wind instrument, or the bow in a violin or strings, and that's the bottom layer of the wind and the line of the phrase. And on top of that, you pick the color, the tone, the way you choose to make the sound, which really is just it's a physics thing of opening the aperture to the speed of the wind. There's nothing else that's any more complicated than that. But you make the choice for sound and color, and then you add the articulation on. So there's such a wide variety of colors, styles, and things you can use, all of those pieces, and then you've got vibrato you can use too. So there's all these layerings that can happen that you choose as I find myself to be a co-creator with the composer.
So now that you just described, is that sort of how you learned to play? I mean, is that literally what you were taught, or is that just sort of what you've intuited over time as you've played more and more, this sort of mixture of colors and feelings and sort of sensing those in music and then kind of projecting those?
I think that you gain from your teachers a lot of wide variety of things. When you're really studying, you're just really, again, doing the mechanics, trying to figure it all out. Learning how to put the tongue on the reed, learning all of those things. And I think I'm being more global about how I'm describing it than the specifics. I think everybody has that idea of the line of the wind, the choices that you make, but at some point you literally are launched out of the nest and just try to make those choices yourself, which is it's a lot deeper than just playing it correctly, I guess is what I'm saying. I
like what you said about being like a co-creator, co-collaborator with the composer. I imagine that the reason that you like to play music is because you have a musical sensibility, you have an appreciation for music, you have for lack of a better term, a musician's soul, you feel that in a way that perhaps not everyone does. And so you have something to express, something in you that connects with that.
That's a really interesting way to say it. I like that. I do. And I do think that we like to honestly awaken the pilot light inside everybody in the audience.
Because that's what it is. To me, music is like, it's from your gut, you know?
Totally is. And I think there's there's a fine line between having an experience that I'm trying to give you when I play the oboe, and you absorbing it and appreciating it. And I don't mean appreciating it like, oh, wow, what the goddess of oboe. I don't mean that. I just mean, receiving what I'm offering is what I'm saying. There's a fine line between that and however you have to interpret that. And I think that to even contrast that with Le Tombeau by Ravel, and the opening of this, again, the oboe has the responsibility of starting the entire piece. Yeah. And it starts on an A. And an A is what an oboe does to tune the orchestra. So the first sound you ever hear in an orchestra is an A that the oboe plays, and then everybody tunes to them. So they give that sound. And this piece starts on that A, but everybody asks me why the oboist is the one that tunes it. And I mean, Lord knows. It was the most volatile instrument, so maybe that was the reason back when. But
yeah, why would an entire orchestra rely on a double-reeded instrument that's so subject to, the vicissitudes and the, the atmosphere and all of this? They rely on this very unreliable seeming instrument.
Well, maybe because they know we're also unstable mentally and we need the support. I don't know.
Or maybe it's because there are so many things that can potentially go wrong when you're playing an oboe that oboists are sort of like more prepared than other musicians
let's go with
do
that.
It right.
Let's go with that's what I go with.
Okay,
I say that.
So we're gonna listen to Ravel. Okay,
Le Tombeau de Couperin, and it's just again one of these virtuosic pieces. And Kathy Greenbanks is principal in St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, and she's just brilliant. She's just brilliant and does a beautiful job on this. So there you go.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's a great piece. And it just winds and around. It's just like this constant motion of winding and almost like a little bitty wheel that just continues. And it's just wonderful. Water wheel is what I always think of when I'm playing it.
This is kind of a weird question.
No,
but as a former trumpet player, I was just thinking, like, okay, so when you play the trumpet, you've only got the three keys to work with, right? And so much of what you're doing is depending on sort of a tightening of the lips or the way that you're passing air through your lips and the mouthpiece. With the oboe, and I don't even know how to ask this question really, but okay, so you've got a particular fingering
right
on the oboe. Can you get, aside from, say, staccato or legato, can
different
you go higher
notes.
Or lower on that? Like,
no, it doesn't have the the overtone stuff that you deal with on trumpet.
Okay.
You can overblow a note accidentally sometimes, which is not pleasant. But really, the note is the note. Now, up in the upper register, your reed has to be made to a certain way to keep it up to pitch. If it's flat, you're not playing up in the upper register without biting big time. So the reed has to kind of be its self-contained master of pitch.
I see.
But no, it's pretty much like a piano. But the problem is with the oboe, it does matter the wind speed and the placement and the reed and the mouth and everything, because you can play super flat in the upper register. With if you're biting too much or not biting enough, or the way your embouchure is shaped.
I see. Okay, but it's not the same. Like you're not going to get 3 or 8 different notes out of one fingering.
Right. It's like a flute. It's like the flute.
Okay.
It's just like the flute and clarinet and saxophone, just like that.
Cool.
So you can do multiphonics, which means it sounds like it's honking.
I want to hear that.
Oh, sure. Come on over.
So you had, there were 7 pieces that you had me study, which, by the way, is more than I've studied thus far for any of these episodes. So thanks a lot. I had to cram before class. What else are we going to hear today to get, a nice round picture of what the oboe can do?
Yes, the Schumann, the New England Triptych, the second movement is just a beautiful duo between bassoon and oboe.
And Schumann, this is William Schumann. This
exactly.
is a more contemporary composer.
Correct. It was written around 1956.
Okay.
And it's just this stunning thing based on When Jesus Wept. It's a poem, The Falling Tear, and mercy flowed beyond all bound. When Jesus mourned, a trembling fear seized all the guilty world around. And it's just this almost harkening back to Shostakovich, but this desolate kind of sound. But you're in your middle range, not the high range, which can choke, which can not come out sometimes. So there's a slight danger to it in a good way. And if you embrace kind of the danger of some of it, it actually lends a good edge to what you're doing.
Huh.
Right here. It almost sounds military in a way, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. With the death toll of the drum.
This whole piece, I noticed as I went through it, is very much kind of just in this vein. It's very sort of flowy and slow and sort of, like you said about, I can't remember which one it was, but it's got a sort of desolate
That's that Shostakovich sound.
Yeah.
So it's just this great, and putting the two double reeds together just makes it even more poignant, is that word I always say. Oboes get all the poignant things. If you want to have a tear come, make the oboe play. And the tear could come for many reasons, but right here, listen. That note is so easily not coming out sometimes. So anyway, it's just this beautiful piece. And the very last thing I had for you to listen to is the Pulcinella Suite by Stravinsky.
I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but when you talk about playing the oboe, it sounds almost as if you are talking about participating in an extreme sport.
Yes.
That if you screw up, you're going to get horribly
You die.
injured.
It's that whole Scheherazade thing. It really affected me. Well, I think it's a do or die thing in a good way, and I mean it in a positive way. And I think when you get to a certain point, you either embrace that or you crumble. Honestly, in all music, and it is always stepping out there and becoming incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
So this is Chicago with Eugene. The Serenata, second movement of Pulcinella. It's kind of fast, this particular tempo that they picked, but I like it a little slower. But it's dance-like. I love that you said it's an extreme sport, and I think that there's a high that comes from it when you achieve it, just like any other sport. But I keep trying to say that it's a good thing. It's a good way, just like live radio. Why I love live radio. I love it. I don't want to ever do recorded things like when we do interviews, because things can happen in the moment that really make it different. And that's what I love about live performance. Finding ways to bring things out differently in performance, not surprise people, but just in the moment realizing something different can happen.
Yeah.
It's a live conversation.
Yeah, that's cool. So what we have discovered in our conversation today is that Alecia Lawyer, she is an adrenaline junkie, and we have found you out.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
I think that's probably fair.
That's cool, though. I can see that. I think that would absolutely horrify me, but I can understand in theory.
Awesome.
Yeah. Alecia, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
showing me, teaching me all about the oboe today. This was very cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, and send people my way if they have questions. I'd love to talk to them.
Will do. Listeners, if you have a question about any conversation that you've heard on the Classical Classroom, feel free to email me, your host, Dacia Clay, at dclay@classical917.org. And I'll do my best to address your question on air. If not, I'll try to write you back. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll catch you next time.